motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. Caroline Dubois' decision win over Miranda Reyes on the undercard of Buatsi versus Aziz this past weekend. Caroline was sharp. She had a live one in front of her. Turned out to be a more live opponent than I originally anticipated. Miranda Reyes showed good gamesmanship, good durability. She took some hard shots, but she weathered them.
This fight was about inches.
As good a fight as Miranda Reyes tried to put up, this really was a game of inches. Caroline Dubois was just sharper, better in the exchange, better all around, moving her head, keeping it on a swivel, moving her torso, getting under and around punches.
Beating those feet.
Moving around, using the ring, creating space. She was better in the exchange, inside the pocket, and she was better outside the pocket. Looked to be the stronger puncher of the two, even if she didn't rack up a highlight reel knockout. Her punches did seem to have more on them than Miranda's.
Those body shots.
When this fight was first announced, initially I thought to myself that Miranda, she's young like Caroline is young, but she's not really a step up from the last two girls that Caroline fought. Magali Rodriguez, Yanina Lescano, those are more experienced fighters than Miranda Reyes is.
No, she's not a step up from those fighters, from those girls, but I will say she may service as adequate preparation for who Caroline may end up fighting, because she may end up fighting Uruguay's Mayra Moneo.
It's possible for two things to be true at the same time. No, Miranda is not as experienced as the last couple of girls that Caroline fought, but she did service as adequate preparation for another fighter. Caroline is ranked at #1 by way of the WBC. Mayra Moneo is ranked at #2, and she's registered as the WBC's interim champion. Now that we know that Caroline's not going after the IBF title, she's not going to fight Beatriz Ferreira.
We've already been all through that several times.
Ben is going to redirect her to another alphabet title, presumably the WBC, because she's ranked #1 with them, and if that's what he does, she may end up fighting Mayra Moneo, who is a more experienced version of the fighter that she just fought in Miranda. Miranda is a scrapper, a tough one, like Mayra Moneo is a scrapper, just more experienced, with more fights and more rounds in the bank. It will be a similar fight for Caroline Dubois if that's who she ends up facing. Mayra's a slugger. Mayra's a scrapper. Mayra is a mid-range to inside combination puncher. I will say that Mayra's combinations are a bit more disorganized than what you see from Caroline. Mayra's wild flurries. She just wants to get close to you and let her hands go. That's where this past weekend's fight will service as good experience and good preparation for Caroline. Being able to work under pressure, being able to work under those circumstances, not relying as much on combination punching and speed and firepower, but movement and angles and defense to show the cleaner work and get the job done within a round.
I see what the matchmakers were thinking.
Mayra, she doesn't have a major promoter behind her per se. She doesn't come from a lot of money, so I have no doubts that Ben Shalom and the people at Boxer can make it worth her while to have her fight Caroline Dubois in the United Kingdom. The full WBC title, the WBC title at lightweight, it's still held by Katie Taylor. That's one of the titles that she hasn't vacated yet.
She's already vacated the WBO and the IBF, but she hasn't yet vacated the WBC and the WBA, though that could change very soon. I don't think Katie Taylor has many more fights to give the sport of boxing.
Very soon, Caroline Dubois and Mayra Moneo could end up fighting for either WBC interim status or the full WBC title. Caroline is on the cusp of becoming a world champion, and as stated, this past weekend's fight was good preparation for a Mayra Moneo fight. I expect Ben Shalom to move fast on this thing. He might get Caroline back out there in the spring, early summer months. There's still plenty of time for Caroline to fight
3 times?
3, maybe 4 times this year, I'd say. Irrespective of the politics and the whole back and forth with Matchroom, the Dixon fight that never was, but the Beatriz Ferreira fight that could have been, and all of that. Irrespective of all of that, Caroline is on the right track. She is on course to become a world champion herself in the landscape at 135. It's now changing. A new crop of champions is set to sprout. Caroline Dubois is one among them. Congratulations to her. Just in keeping with the theme of all things boxing, Billam-Smith is not paying attention to the hype surrounding Jai Opetaia, who still is this division's lineal and Ring Magazine champion, soon to be two-time IBF champion if he takes care of business with Mairis Briedis the way I think he's going to take care of business.
Jai Opetaia has the rematch with former champion Mairis Briedis to take care of,
while Billam-Smith has a rematch of his own to take care of. He has signed a deal to box as mandatory challenger, and the only man to beat him is a professional, Riakporhe, another one of boxers' fighters. Next, and isn't overly concerned by the attention and excitement Opetaia is generating. He prefers to focus on his own business. I don't listen to too much hype and people. At the end of the day, if I was to listen to that, I would have never beaten Lawrence Okolie. I was going to get wiped out by Lawrence. Lawrence was going to eat me up. Lawrence was going to do this and that, he told Seconds Out. We just know what I'm capable of in the gym, and that's all that matters. The people who see me every day, they're the ones who know how good I am and how good I can be and that I can box.
He's not wrong. He can't get all caught up in some other fighter's wave, some other champion. He has to focus on the man in front of him, and the man in front of him is Riakporhe.
Before it becomes about Jai Opetaia, look, it's not an easy fight. No fights at this level are easy, but it's a fight we believe I can win against Opetaia, and the hype is because he's boxed Jordan and beat him in 4 rounds, and then Elizoro in 1 round, he said, with respect to both guys, and this is what I said to Jordan in the changing room afterwards. You've jumped up a lot of levels here to go and box at world level. He'd never really boxed at British level before, although he had the ability to win a British title. My career's been perfectly managed in that sense. I've had those little acid tests along the way. Next level, next level, next level. When you jump that many levels, it's not possible to do so. Opetaia's boxed those 2 guys who've never really boxed at British level.
Where he's boxed at world level, at least once, with a world-class operator, world-class fighter, and Mairis Briedis, then champion over a year ago. Tough guy, always a tough guy. He broke Jai Opetaia's jaw in 2 places.
Jai showed his caliber, showed his quality, showed his worth, powered through it, and won a decision in what was a thriller. Took over a year to come back, but he came back with a vengeance.
Made a splash. Billam-Smith, he's hearing all about it, because he's a champion at this weight.
He said Opetaia's boxed those 2 guys, Jordan Thompson, Elizoro, who have never really boxed at British level, and he's got a lot of hype off of it. But we'll know more when he fights Briedis next, as if he hasn't fought Briedis before,
right.
As if he hasn't beat Briedis before.
Right.
It's the funniest thing.
What is?
The fight with Mairis Briedis over a year ago, in spite of flying a bit low on the radar with the Americans and the Brits,
right.
That fight was a barn burner. If you're one of these guys that likes high-octane fights and action fights, that's what that was, with ebbs and flows, and Jai grinded it out and won a decision and became a champion. But he didn't get the hype for that fight and that performance that he got for Jordan Thompson and Elizoro over a year later. Maybe it's because those were highlight reel knockouts.
He made short work of those guys and made it look easy.
So it's like he's getting more of a buzz off of those fights than the Mairis Briedis fight, when it's the Mairis Briedis fight that legitimizes him. It's the Mairis Briedis fight that really shows you this guy's world level, this guy's world class, and he may be the best in show in the cruiserweight division. Chris continued, we'll know then where he's at on the world scene, because if Briedis goes into that fight fully fit, although he's been out for a while, inactive, and if he boxes at a decent percentage of his capabilities, then it's a close fight. I think we'll see. And what I think we're gonna see? I think Jai Opetaia is going to stop Mairis Briedis. I'm sorry to say that Mairis Briedis, he's getting long in the tooth. He's in his late 30s. He hasn't boxed in over a year. The last time we saw him, he was in a very hard fight. Do you understand that he hasn't boxed since the Jai Opetaia fight, where Jai has fought 2 times since then? So the night of, he's going to be fast, he's going to be strong, he's going to be sharp.
Mairis Briedis doesn't win that fight. Sorry.
The landscape is changing at cruiserweight. That's what's going on. Very soon, Arsene Goulamarian will be defending his title against Zerto Ramirez, and we'll see if the title changes hands. We'll see if Zurdo can become the first Mexican cruiserweight champion. We'll see about that. At the same time, Jai Opetaia has the rematch with Mayris Briedis, and Chris Billam-Smith has the rematch with Richard Riakporhe, the only man to hand him a professional loss.
Chris doesn't have time to be worrying about Jai Opetaia and what he's doing and who he's fighting and matchroom fighters. He's got his own problems. Richard Riakporhe is one of them. Being honest with you, I wouldn't spend too much time worrying about Chris Billam-Smith versus Jai Opetaia because I don't think Chris is going to get that far. I think Richard's going to beat him.
He beat him before, and I think he's going to beat him again. Now, you can argue that Chris Billam-Smith has improved since the first Richard Riakporhe fight, but the same can be said for Richard Riakporhe. Richard is now more experienced. It doesn't work one way. It works both ways.
Richard has been fucking people up and knocking people out. Chris Billam-Smith scored a knockout in his last fight.
He did.
A funny-looking knockout over Matthias Masternak, a voluntary.
Matthias looked like he was winning that fight. He looked like he was en route to win that fight. Now, I don't know, Chris, he gets through with a body shot, and apparently it had more of an effect on Matthias Masternak than in real time, because I think he didn't come out for the next round. I think he was hurt. They waved it off, and Chris won the fight. Like I said, it was a funny-looking knockout. Now he's got to deal with Richard again.
Chris gets hit too fucking much.
Still gets hit too fucking much. He was getting hit. He was getting clipped. In the Masternak fight, Masternak, he's an older guy. What happens if Richard connects on you like he was connecting on you? I think Richard's gonna beat him.
Forget about Jai Opetaia.
He's not invited to their party. I think things are going to be insulated when it comes to Boxer and Boxer's cruiserweights for a while, because if Richard beats Chris, I don't know if Chris doesn't have a rematch clause. I don't know if he activates it. I don't know if Richard's going to have to fight Lawrence Okolie after that. But what I do know is things are going to be insulated at Boxer for a while. And none of those guys are going to end up fighting Jai Opetaia in the next 2 to 3 fights.
Jai should look to fight the winner of Goulamarian versus Ramirez. If he can't get the winner of that fight in the ring, he should then look to fight Noel Gavor. Unify with him. See if you can't take his WBC title. That's what he should do in the meantime.
Because Boxer, they got their own scene. They're not going to let Jai near any of their cruiserweights right now. Finally, in men's heavyweight news, Eddie Hearn says Ngannou has power, very strong. I don't think it's not dangerous for Anthony Joshua, quite right. He has to take the assignment seriously, more seriously than Tyson Fury took it, but so long as he does, he should get the job done.
I think he will.
I believe Anthony Joshua will make easy work of Francis Ngannou, Hearn told Boxing Social. I don't think it's not dangerous. Like, Ngannou has power. He's very strong, but that's my opinion. I believe that Anthony Joshua will be too good for Francis Ngannou, so it's never a disrespect thing. What it really is you got one guy, 250 pounds, another guy, 275 pounds, and it's not 275 pounds of a blubbering mass like Tyson Fury. It's a hulking mass. It's a big guy who takes care of himself, and for what it's worth, even though he's a novice to boxing, he's still a consummate professional in his own right that takes the assignment seriously.
So you don't want to be the guy that stayed up late and didn't get enough sleep before the big test. You don't want to be the guy that didn't do his homework, didn't take the assignment seriously.
I think that's what happened to Tyson Fury when he took on this assignment, and he got a lot more than he bargained for, whereas Anthony, I think Anthony will treat the opponent with a bit more respect. Eddie Hearn continued, he has the ability to send anyone down, he says. Anyone. It could be AJ. He did it to Tyson Fury. I'm sure there's many others, but there's more to it than just that, There's more to the skill and the art of boxing, and I believe he'll be too good for him.
Eliticism isn't just about talent. It doesn't all just boil down to talent. It also boils down to habits.
Yeah.
Good ones.
Boils down to discipline as well. Who's got it and who doesn't. Elitism is often referred to as something that is granted, divine, God-given, when elitism can boil down to what your practices are. It's something that you have to maintain, like a car or a credit score, economic standing.
Shoveling piles of cocaine up your nose, slamming down beers, ballooning in weight between fights, not taking care of yourself. That's not elitism. That doesn't lend itself to your elitism and maintaining it at all. But that is what Tyson Fury does, isn't it?
Good as you think he might be able to box, that's what leaves the door open for a guy like Ngannou to surprise him, to take him by surprise. He won't have that element in a fight with Anthony Joshua. It depends on how AJ wants to approach the fight, Hearn said. I think if he chooses to box smart, yeah, he can do the 10 rounds no problem. If he chooses to be aggressive, I think he knocks him out. But you've always got to be smart in the heavyweight division. Like, it's not that Francis Ngannou can knock AJ out or can drop Fury. Anybody who's that size and knows how to throw their hands. Do you know what I mean?
AJ likes to work on his craft, he likes to work on his boxing, and Ben Davison, who's now training him, he's a cerebral guy in his own right, so I don't doubt that they can come up with the right strategy to beat this guy. Now, what I think that strategy is going to be are the basics.
Basic fundamentals. The basics, a guy that Francis Ngannou is just now getting acquainted with. It is true what Eddie Hearn says. You're talking about a guy who's 275 pounds, 6'6", 6'7". He doesn't have to be the best boxer in the world to hurt you or knock you down because he's just so big overall. This is not the guy you get cute with.
So you keep it simple, stupid. You stick to the basics. The basics you're well acquainted with, but the basics that he's just starting to figure out. That's how you pick him apart. That's how you break him down.
Hearn continued, so I think that Francis Ngannou, it's admirable the fact that this is his second professional fight. His first one was against Tyson Fury, and his second one is against Anthony Joshua, and he's competing, he's competitive. I thought, people say, Francis is saying, about me selling it, I think he beat Fury, right? But when it comes to AJ, I think we're on a roll now, and I think we're gonna do the business and then beat Tyson Fury.
But do you notice the stark contrast between planning a main event around Anthony Joshua and planning a main event around Tyson Fury? Don't you see that whenever Tyson Fury's involved, things go haywire? That they always go haywire.
Whereas with Anthony and Eddie and Matchroom, things function efficiently, like a well-oiled machine. And for all the belly aching about this fight, it's not like it's the only fight that Anthony's gonna have. He's doing this in the first quarter of the year, leaving plenty of room in the second or the third quarter to fight someone else. His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh has made a public offer to Filip Hrgovic to fight on the Joshua vs. Ngannou undercard on March 8th. If he takes care of business and he makes it through that, maybe Anthony fights him afterwards, because His Excellency has said that Usyk and Fury have a rematch clause. Anthony won't have access to the winner of that fight for at least 2 fights.
If he beats Ngannou, he can fight Filip Hrgovic afterwards.
Filip can fight somebody of his choosing on the undercard, let Anthony take care of business in the main event. If both boys make it through their fights, they can fight each other afterwards while they wait for the winner of Fury versus Usyk. It's perfect.
And a lot more copacetic than what you get when you deal with Tyson Fury of Queensberry Promotions. I'm sorry, but it needs to be said. There's a stark contrast between planning an event for Anthony and planning an event for Tyson Fury.
It's always a fucking problem with Tyson Fury.